Hello, Nick.
Howdy.
I think we need somebody to make us a new intro song. I really like that one, but I think it's generically chosen off one of these sites, isn't it? We're going to put a challenge out for a new intro song, a live one. Okay. Hello, everybody out there in cyber world. I want to welcome everybody to
left hand.
I want to welcome everybody to Table Talk at Tobacco Road tonight. We've been looking forward to this show all week because we're going to talk some bloopers and we're going to talk some behind-the-scenes stuff for the Bike Fest event that we've been having here for about 15 years. And I didn't know who else to really have this conversation with amongst my staff other than Nick, because I will tell you that during our Bike Fest event, which is 3 days,
and 3 nights.
And 3 nights. He's usually here first and he's usually here last. So I figured if nothing will get by him during these events. And we've had some pretty interesting times. So before we get started, though, I wanted to thank Geico Local Office. They are our sponsor for this podcast. They help us with a lot of things here at the dealership. And we do sell Geico insurance here at the store. So their number is at the bottom of the screen there if you're looking for some motorcycle insurance. So let's get started.
Let's do it.
And I like to start with a story about whoever's on the podcast. And I'm going to tell on myself because sometimes I can get a little stressed out and I get a little scatterbrained when I'm doing stuff. And I remember distinctly one Bike Fest year a couple of years ago. I decided that I was going to ride this gold custom Road King that we did back home from back to the dealership one morning. I think it was a Saturday morning. Might have been Saturday morning. And if you know where our shop is, there's a big hill at the end, and at the bottom of the hill is a light, and you kind of get into downtown Raleigh that way. So I was coming from the hotel, and the bike broke down in the morning, coming up the hill, and I was like, I'm not pushing this thing up the hill. It was straight up the hill. So I called Nick because I knew he'd already be at the store, and he was. And he comes down, and he brings the truck, and he picks the bike up, and we ride back to the dealership, and I get started with my day. So later, I'm going back there to check on him, and I said, hey, what was broken on the bike? And he said, well, it was out of gas, but your secret is safe with me.
He told the truth. I was waiting. Okay.
I ran out of gas, and I didn't check any of it, and I just swore the bike broke. So no matter how experienced you are, it can happen to any of us.
It happens to the best of us.
Yes, it does. All right, so right out of the gate, tell me your favorite Bike Fest story.
Man. So my favorite Bike Fest story is probably simultaneously one of the hardest Bike Fest stories. Building the Wall of Death.
So first wall, second wall?
First wall.
Okay, first wall. So that was in the convention center.
Yeah, that's this one.
That was the year that I didn't read in the contract we had to provide our own labor.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
And to top it all off, it's the biggest wall of death in the world.
Yes.
And so I get a phone call probably, I don't know, probably around 3:30, 4 o'clock that day. It was a Thursday. And it was one of the hog members downtown at the expo. And they were like, hey, this guy Charlie here wants to talk to you. You need to come down here. And I'm like, okay.
Charlie Everett.
No.
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 Charlie. Okay.
Ransom.
Oh, Charlie Ransom. That's right.
So I get down there. He's like, oh yeah, it's in your contract. You have to provide the labor to set this whole thing up. And I'm like, well, that's new to me. And I get on the phone with Chris Weiss. He's like, well, I didn't read the contract. We just wanted the wall of death, so we got it. So yeah, that was it's definitely a life-changing experience if you've ever set up a wall of death. I think we'll get into that a little bit later, but
we have quite a few wall of death stories, so we will get into those. Look at Dave. Dave's in the house, the toy maker. Thanks for watching, Dave. Thanks for tuning in. Matter of fact, we might as well get into Dave since he's on. Yeah, let's start. You got that picture? So for those of you that don't know, we were fortunate enough. There's a great shot of Dave Ankin, the toy maker. He has a TV show called The Toy Maker on Toy Makers on the Discovery Channel and Drive, and History Channel, and he goes way back with me to the previous motorcycle store that I worked at in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Before I came here to Raleigh, and we built the store there built some bikes for him, and I got to know him back then. And for me to say if I knew one quintessential gearhead who lives anything that really goes fast, it would be Dave Ankin, I would say. And I've known Dave a long time, and he has been doing crazy things for a really long time, and we've been friends. So he ended up putting together a TV show, and he called me one day and he said, hey, I got this great idea. I want to support local things that are going on, and I think you should do an episode for Bike Fest for toy makers. And I didn't really know what to say, because I'm like, I didn't really know what that meant. Like, I've never done anything for TV. And he basically just said, hey, we're going to do it. And he's been supporting the motorcycle endeavors that I've been a part of for many, many years. So it was really, really cool for him to do that. And sure enough, I think it was 2017 was the first season of Toy Makers. And they had a Capital City Bike Fest episode, and Dave showed up with a freaking camera crew of people and like signage. We had to put signs everywhere that said you might be on TV, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it was legit. And it was amazing. And what I love about Dave is I think he's on season 4. I think it's season 4 now. And you wouldn't know it if you like him interacting with our Bike Fest customers here was so cool, because he spoke to everybody who wanted to be spoken to.
Yeah, it's like talking to a regular dude, like you and I. You know?
Well, he just goes really, really fast. So there's a picture of him getting ready for the parade. That's him in the blue shirt on the bike.
Yeah, that's the turbo, right?
No, that was the Zumongo bike that he rode in the parade that year. He built a turbo bike next year for the TV show.
Right.
But I remember following that van of camera people, and they were literally they're so focused on getting the shot, they literally were falling out of the van. I was ready at any moment to veer out, because I didn't want to run over one of the camera people, because that would not have been good. And they got some good footage. And when it aired on Velocity, that particular show episode, his first episode was on Velocity TV. When it aired, that parade was really cool. I mean, the way the cinematography in it was awesome, and the crew was so easy to work with.
Oh yeah.
I know we had to do a lot of concessions that we weren't prepared for because we didn't know what to do, and they were so cool.
Yeah, they stayed out of the way quite a bit, but you knew they were there, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And we did quite a bit of stuff to accommodate them, but it was frankly they made it really easy for us to get them over here
Right.
and help out with us.
It was very natural, I thought.
It was.
And you know, we couldn't wait for the TV show to come out. It was pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, seeing it on TV was cool.
It was really cool. And then we got to do it a second year. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show because the second year was like now we knew what to do.
Right.
And at that point, Dave had built some really crazy stuff, and he built a bike that they unveiled at Bike Fest here for the TV show, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But thanks for tuning in. That's a great shot there, actually, of Dave and flying high Cole Freeman. So Cole's a good buddy of ours too, and he called me one day and he said, "Hey, I know that you hired me to do some stunt riding, but I think we should do a jump. I want to jump. I want to jump like I want to do a jump." So I didn't really know. So here's the scenario, and Nick will appreciate this story. I didn't know how I was going to get the city to okay doing a jump, first of all. We didn't have any room to do the jump.
Yeah, I think we were talking about doing it downtown at one point.
We were. And then I didn't know how I was going to keep Chris from short-circuiting when I told him, who was in charge of Bike Fest, that we were going to do a jump. So I just didn't say anything. And I told Cole, we'll do a jump. So he comes all the way out here, brings those ramps. We get here, and I still don't really know where it's going. And Cole said, "You got to put it right up front. You got to put it right up front." And I'm like, okay, it's going to take out like, I don't know, 200 bike parking spaces.
Yeah, it's like the whole middle row.
And it's really going to be in everybody's way. And Chris goes, "Mark, why does Cole have a trailer full of ramps?" And I said, "We're going to do a jump." And he said, "A what?" I said, "A jump." Okay.
It's just a thing.
Okay. So we set the ramps up out front, right in front of the dealership. No barricades.
Nothing.
And my favorite part of that whole setup is when Cole decides to start practicing. Give that picture. Okay, so here's the jump.
Yeah, that's sick.
When Cole starts practicing this jump, and we jumped over all those pallets of water, which was one of his sponsors. When he does this jump, and if you're not watching, the picture that's up is him literally in the air flying through. And if you look really close to the picture, there's an electrical wire that goes right close to where he's jumping.
Yeah. It was...
And he says to me, "Well, I mean, I think I can clear it." Like he took a couple of practice jumps, like later. It was at night, I think he did those.
Yeah, it was after we closed
because everything was so delayed.
Out there watching because we were all done.
So Cole does the jump, and it was epic. I mean, it was probably one of the coolest Bike Fest things that we ever pulled off.
It was pretty sweet. It was really awesome. I stood there and watched the whole thing. A lot of the stuff is, I don't want to sound jaded, but it's motorcycle stuff, and it's stuff you and I have been around for a long time, and it just kind of becomes regular. But that was just sick.
Well, I'll tell you, him and Dave had a lot to talk about because they both were into a lot of the same stuff, and they respected each other's craft quite a bit. And but Cole loves Evel Knievel, and he if you watch a lot of the jumps that people do on TV and stuff, you see the speedometer that's real big that they can read by the ramp, and you can see like the ramps are not made out of wood, and like Cole's stuff is legit because he's practicing. I mean, how many passes did he make to get the timing right? Because he doesn't have a speed gauge that shows his miles per hour when he hits the ramp.
Right. He's in third gear listening for that RPM.
It's about a feeling to him. And, for the customers and the attendees who don't really know that, it just looks really cool. But some of us who kind of know a little bit about some of the other people that are jumping and stuff, I mean, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty mind-boggling. That was pretty interesting. We had a good time with the ramp for sure. So
Snuck that one in there.
All right, worst Bike Fest memory.
Worst Bike Fest memory. Well, I mean, some of it was the pain of putting together that wall of death, because that was terrible. But probably the worst one, honestly, to me, is the one that rained the whole time.
Oh, 2015.
Yeah,
the rain year.
Yeah, I think I took a Facebook picture and posted it of me underneath a bike watching a oil drip come off.
Yeah.
I was just so ridiculously bored that time.
Well,
Whoa.
yeah, that was when you had lost it and I sent you home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was 2 a.m.
2 a.m. at one night while we were cleaning up the streets. Yeah. Go back to that picture with the stage. So 2015 was the rain year.
That was the rain
for sure.
year.
And so some of the behind the scenes stuff you don't think about when things like this happen is, I mean, it's amazing. You can see that the stage roof is down real low to keep the wind from coming in. Everything's covered in tarps.
Yep.
Yeah. And people are just going at it. And, one thing you can do as an event promoter is buy rain insurance. And we agonized over, this is my favorite photo, because that's Chris Weiss there, and you can see how wet that year was. That's downtown Fayetteville Street. And, we agonized over buying rain insurance or not.
And it sounds ridiculous.
It sounds ridiculous, but for the loss of expense that you have when nobody comes to spend money or to engage during the event, I mean, it may be okay. The problem is we chose not to buy it that year, and it ended up being a good thing, though, because I want to get back to that picture in a minute, because it's measured at the airport. And the airport that year did not get enough rain where we would have got paid back. So we would have purchased this insurance and not got a cent.
So we got it all, and RDU didn't get a thing.
Didn't get a thing. Yeah, it was terrible, but it was we still pushed on, and that year everybody involved pushed through really, really hard, and we got a few pictures. I want to talk about some of these folks that helped us that year.
Oh yeah.
Push through some of the actual activations. Go back to that picture of Ryan there. I mean, so Ryan Lanier was our stunt rider. He's been stunting for us for years and years. I've been knowing Ryan since I was in Fayetteville. He's a good friend of mine. He's my stunt double. Not anymore because he's skinnier than me now. But I love this photo because when it was raining and he showed up, I said, Ryan, man, you don't need to ride. It's wet. And he was like, Mark, you got to have stunts. Like, it's a bike fest. We have to have stunts. I'm going to stunt. And if you've ever seen him stunt before, his facial expression is usually very light and smiling and very engaged in the audience. Yep. This particular facial expression is, it's wet and I better not crash.
Yeah.
So he's super intense right there. And I remember that year vividly because I felt so bad because he was like, I committed to stunt. There are people here and the show must go on. And do you have that other picture where that's
the face.
This is like the end of she's like, that's right. That's one of my favorite shots of him.
Got it.
Stunting right there because it was soaking wet.
Oh yeah,
when he was doing that, and there's a couple of other shots. So this, I'm pretty sure this was later.
Yeah, that was probably like Sunday or something.
Yeah,
because
that was the next day. That's right.
It rained like Friday and Saturday hard.
So
we did that behind. Yep.
Now this picture is from a different bike fest.
Right, last year.
So this picture was last year, and the reason why I think it's really relevant when we're talking about people that are participating in an event to push through is, Ryan has helped me in a lot of different situations, provide a good show for our customers, all the way back to when we were doing bike nights in Fayetteville for the shop down there. And in that photo, he has a broken shoulder. And last year he came to do stunts. Not only does he have a broken shoulder, but that's a stretched swing arm.
Right.
On the sport bike.
It's not meant
with
to
a
go
fat
up
tire.
like
And he shows up, and I felt like it was deja vu. I said, "Hey, man, you don't have to ride." He broke his shoulder in an undisclosed event that we won't talk about in this podcast. But he had a broken shoulder, and he literally said, "Hey, the show must go on, and I'm going to ride."
That same event, they had sold a bike probably around 9:00 in the sales department, and they were like, the guy wants slip-ons, so no other techs here, so I started putting the slip-ons on the lift, and with the broken shoulder and everything, Ryan comes riding into the service department and changes that 240 tire by himself. Like, don't help me out, bro. Just leave me alone. And he took off. He handled it. But that shows some perseverance. It shows some
look at that
gumption. Let's call it gumption.
We had fun in that street that year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good evidence. So there's a lot of folks that help us in these times, and I go to that picture of Bernie. Bernie
in the rain.
Yeah. Bernie's been a good friend of mine for a long time too, and he's been playing in a couple of bands. I love this photo because this was the rain year. This was 2015. There is no one in the audience, folks. He is putting on the show of his life.
He's jamming
and he's rocking, and it's raining, and there's no one in the audience. And I love that because he said, we got to do a show. We got to do a good show.
Yeah.
Like the event's got to go. It's got to happen.
That's the real hardworking musician. That's the way they do it.
But the other thing is, Bernie is probably one of the most positive people I know. Like, he is always positive. It doesn't matter what's going on. He's always positive. And even when it was doom and gloom and it was Rain Bike Fest, he was going to put on one hell of an event, which as the people that are putting it on, we really appreciate that from all those guys. Is Ryan on? Oh, there he is. There he is, the man.
Oh, Leah, yes.
Oh, jeez.
Every time Mark hits the table.
Okay, I'll try not to hit the table.
The knees.
I'm sorry. I'm just very passionate. Oh.
Yeah, Sam Weber got on. And,
all right, let me start this story.
Okay.
Let me start this story.
This is a cool event.
So that's one of my favorite pictures. All right, so Sam is one of our technicians in the back, and he's an awesome member of our team. And I'm working on this vintage race with Curtis Venable, who helped me put it together. Jody Parowitz helped me a lot with the race, trying to bring some vintage bike racing here. There she is there. I'm trying to bring some vintage bike racing to Raleigh. And we didn't know how it was going to work out, and we didn't know if we were going to have a lot of racers or what. And, Curtis called me one day and he said, Mark, it would work out best if we had this amount of racers, but we're short. And I'm like, okay, what can you find me another racer? He said. So what do? I go find Nick. So I go back to Nick and I said, Nick, we need a racer. And, no big deal. I mean, they're, 19, 15, 19, 20 bikes, no gears, no brakes. We're going to race a track at Wake County Speedway, I mean, and in my mind, I'm thinking we're going to get Brandon to do it in parts because he does some flat track racing.
Yeah.
But I think Brandon was hurt. He had hurt his ankle or something.
Yeah. He did something in riding his XR.
Yeah. There was a reason why he couldn't do it. And so Nick says, well, go ask Sam. So I walk in. This is amazing. I walk into Sam's stall and I said, hey, you want to ride a pre-1920, no brakes, no gears bike on the asphalt, and race it? And he says, sounds cool to me.
Yeah.
Never done that or anything. And he says, I'm gonna need some gear.
Didn't have gloves.
So put that picture up if you don't mind. So the gear, Those are
Yes,
bike.
yes.
Those are basically gardening gloves.
Basically.
Those are
Yeah,
basically
yeah.
gardening gloves that have Bike Fest across the knuckles. And that's what he raced with. That racing suit is mine from 20 years ago that my mother brought up here for him to wear.
Right.
And those shoes he's wearing were so old that they basically disintegrated during this race because they were already dry rotted. They had not been out of the closet in 20 years. And it did. And that was his gear when he went out there and raced.
And it was good. It was good stuff, though. He was very excited, and he was really stoked to be a part of that.
Well, Jody helped a lot because she ended up she was kind of the expert there. She'd done this already, and I think she gave him some good pointers. Him and her raced actually together,
right,
out there on the track, which was pretty cool.
And we can say our man hit the podium every time.
Our man hit the podium every time because in those heats, out of 2 racers, he was second every time.
Exactly.
Oh, the rain was no good, but we made it happen. Yes, we did. That was crazy. That was absolutely crazy, the rain. Helmets are overrated. I don't think I've ever seen Ryan in a helmet.
Who's that guy?
Yeah, Sam.
Mr. Weber.
Well, one more story about this afternoon. I get over to the racetrack, and I'm like, okay, I know Sam's riding. We're gonna tell. Sam rode an Indian because that's the only bike that was left to ride. He had to ride the Indian.
For shame.
The Indian's sitting on the end. There's nobody there. I'm like, where's Sam? Like, we're about to race. And he is with the other guys' bikes, getting them going.
Typical service department fashion.
So he's helping the other guys start. And then he runs over to his bike, gets it. It had an issue too getting started. Gets it started to get out there on the racetrack. And I think that picture, that frantic, I don't want to say it's frantic, but Sam always smiles. I've never seen him look.
It's determination.
I can't decide if this is fear, determination, anxiety. I don't know what he was feeling in this photograph. And for those that can't see the picture, it's pretty intense.
It is. It really is. Like white knuckle grip, and he's not even going anywhere.
No, it was pretty cool. But I'm grateful that our staff has capabilities like that, because anybody who went and watched that vintage race, it was amazing.
It was really cool.
And I'm appreciative of Curtis Venable, who helped organize it, and he was the promoter, and Jody for helping us get everybody there. A guy by the name of eBay Jake, who works at the store in High Point, the Harley store, he wins a lot of these vintage races. He's really good. He was here. Just the whole field of guys that came and raced, guys and girls, that came and raced was amazing. And we're planning on doing that again this year over at the Wake County Speedway. So I think that that's going to grow here in Raleigh because it's really fun to watch.
Yeah, never had so much fun doing 60 miles an hour, I promise.
Yes. And that's
on
about
a quarter-mile track.
That's about what they do. Yeah. That's pretty cool. So we had one year where we decided that it would be a good idea to have a VIP lounge downtown. I don't really have any pictures for this story, but I'm going to tell it. And that was a year that we got sponsored by Bedlam Vodka.
Yeah. I think that was the year I also had the playbook.
Yes.
That we burned on Monday.
Yes, the playbook for the Wall of Death install.
Yeah.
So we had this good idea to have a VIP all access lounge. You bought entry by basically to get, free drinks. I mean, it sounded like a great idea.
It sure did.
Well, we learned our lesson. And when you have about, 200 people in one contained area, so drunk they can't stand up, and you have to funnel food in there nonstop to keep them sober, that was a disaster. That was an absolute disaster. That VIP was a joke for the next several years because every time we had a Bike Fest planning meeting, the VIP came up because it was an absolute.
Yeah, it was like, don't mention it, just stop.
Oh my gosh, it was crazy because we had it fenced in. We had it fenced in, and the people inside the fence could drink all the Bedlam they wanted. The people outside the fence didn't have anything to drink, but yet they could literally touch. It was just a fence, a garden fence.
Yeah. Just a like maybe 2 foot tall. It looked like a little tiny picket fence.
that VIP was a disaster.
Hi, Jody.
Oh, is Jody on? Oh, sweet. So I mean, since she just got on, let's talk about Jody and her impact here at Bike Fest for a lot of years. I mean, when we first met, we were sponsoring her land speed bike, and she brought it down to Bike Fest as part of the sponsorship deal many years ago.
Yep.
And
the Ray Price logo on the side there.
And it's really cool because Jody goes to Sturgis and Daytona and Laconia. I mean, Lone Star Rally. She does rallies all over the country, and it was an honor for her to come to our little bike fest here in Raleigh. And I think she enjoyed it. I mean, the venue was pretty cool downtown when we had it downtown on Fayetteville Street, and I don't think she expected it to be so interesting. And she's been helping us with it ever since in one way or another, whether it was the land speed racing, the vintage racing, coming down and hanging out with lady riders,
right? Signing
autographs. So, we're grateful for that relationship and that friendship, because it really, it's cool for people to run across folks like Dave and Jody that they see on television or whatever, and they actually get to interact with them in the biker community.
It kind of gives you a sense of how small the community really is too,
Yeah.
I mean, there's only so many of us, and it's really neat.
Yeah. It was funny. I was at a dinner. So it was a kind of a sponsor lunch actually on a Saturday afternoon during one of the bike fests. And I'm sitting it was at the Big Easy. If Carolyn Parker's on, she'll remember this. I was at the Big Easy, and I had sponsors. Jody was there. Like, I had a lot of people sit at the table that I was trying to entertain for lunch, and my phone rings. And it's Captain Haynes from downtown Raleigh PD. And he says, "Mark, don't worry, we got it under control. But there is a protest organizing at the end of Fayetteville Street. It is the Nation of Islam, and they are going to protest. They're going to march through downtown Fayetteville Street to protest whatever it is they were protesting." I don't even know what it was, because I just remember thinking, I can't have a protest.
Right.
There's
right
like
down the middle of Bike Fest.
There's 50,000 bikers in that area. Like, how are they going to? Of course, Captain Haynes, at the time, he was Captain Haynes. He's been promoted since then, but he said, "We got it under control. Don't worry about it." So I have to take this call, and I'm pretty panicked at this point. Then I have to turn back around to the lunch and say, "Oh, hey, everything's great. Thank you for coming. I appreciate everybody." Yeah. Are they protesting?
Yeah.
And this goes back and forth for a good 20 minutes. And ultimately, Raleigh PD had a lot of officers there. And obviously, for every bike fest, they would set up a perimeter around the event downtown. And they actually did a lot of things for safety that were behind the scenes. And when the protesters actually showed up at the Memorial Auditorium parking lot to protest, and they saw all the police, thankfully, they decided it wasn't worth it, and they went home.
Yeah. Well,
so
Raleigh PD's always kind of supported us in that event.
They really have, and I'm grateful for them. Of course, my brother is a Raleigh police officer, so
no problem, Jody.
Yeah. Yep. Of course. You're welcome. Thank you. The feeling's mutual. But
yes, we do.
It's a great event. Yes. We had many years of fun down there. Definitely a lot of work. So but yeah, once that protest broke up, that was a big weight off of my shoulders and all of our shoulders that year. Because I wasn't really sure where that was going to go.
It could have gone sideways really quick.
The PD's plan was to surround them and let them walk through Fayetteville Street. I don't know how that would have gone, but
up in the air.
Knock on wood.
It didn't happen.
It didn't. It did not happen.
Right.
Remember when we had the guy set up the booth downtown, and all of a sudden we got wind that he was selling explicit T-shirts?
Yes. They had F words.
Oh, the city did not like that.
No,
And neither did a lot of our
no,
customers.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of complaints about that.
We did not invite him back.
Right.
I
mean, there are shirts I would have bought, but
yeah, well, but not you couldn't have worn them.
Right.
Do you remember when we had the bike show in the convention center? And we had built a custom lift for the bikes.
Yes.
That put them on stages.
Right.
There's one of them.
Yeah. That was
and
one of the cool Sportsters.
Yeah, it was. Adam Carnes built that bike, Carnes Customs. But we, thank goodness, the bike builder community is really, really awesome.
They are.
Because we loaded Jeff Cuddy's bike for the bike show builder class onto a lift that year from Bag Dragger Customs. He's out of Tennessee, I believe, if I remember correctly. And the bike fell off.
Yeah. Like we had specially built that lift just for that purpose.
Oh my God.
It was nice. And like we even stained the wood and everything and had a nice ramp up to it.
I think the air failed or something.
Right. And the bike gets up there and it did one of these. It just, and then.
And I mean, it could have killed Jeff. He did everything he could to try to hold that thing up. And his wife was like, no, like it was slow. The whole thing was slow motion.
It could have been a total disaster. And thank God he was a good sport about it.
I'm super grateful for that. And you know, I mean, it damaged the bike.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It damaged the bike. And of course we didn't do it on purpose, but it still, we knew the severity of a malfunction on that. And we tried to be as safe as we could. And something just happened. And I hate that it happened to anybody, but especially to Jeff, because he's been supporting us for a long time too. I mean, he drives here from Tennessee for the sound offs that we do and for Bike Fest.
Right.
And he's been supporting us a long time in the show. And man, that could have gone bad.
It was a scary moment for sure.
It was definitely a pucker moment for us.
Yeah.
Because if you look at some of the bikes on the screen right now, I mean, they're very expensive.
Yeah, they're big money bikes.
Yeah.
Like these guys don't play around. Like, look at that.
Yeah, Evil Iron built that one.
Yeah, I mean, these
Southern
are the kind
Boy
of bikes we're
Baggers.
talking about going up on that lift.
I know. Very heavy.
3.5, 4 feet in the air and it falls over.
Oh man. I tell you.
What?
Okay, so this picture is a what the hell moment. We're gonna call these what the hell moments.
Yeah, there's a few.
What
of them.
is that? Is that a moose?
It's a buffalo.
I think that's draped over a motorcycle because I think there's a fender there, and the handlebars are coming out of the thing's head. Oh my gosh!
The dragon
bike. Whatever happened to that thing?
We haven't seen that in
that
a little
thing.
while.
That's there's a dragon head on that bike.
Yeah, it used to be a regular appearance at Bike Fest, and haven't seen it in a couple of years.
I wonder what happened to it. Wow.
Somebody's going to say something, I promise.
Hey, go back. Oh, let's talk about the sound offs a minute, because that's what this picture is for. So we started the sound offs a couple of years ago. It's actually fairly recent for us. And the guy in the middle of the picture there on the phone is Ricky Will. And him and Joey, who's standing next to him, we're going to talk about Joey in a minute, because Joey's been here from jump. He's been here from the beginning with us, helping us in all kinds of ways. I would say Joey single-handedly saved the bike show one year with his fireman bike, but we'll talk about that story in a minute.
Yeah.
But these sound off series competitions that we do, they're so much fun. I mean, we use the motorhome building down here because it's big, and Ricky does a great job with the turnkey production on these things, and they are a blast. That particular bike in that ring right there, the red one, the guy that built it is standing next to it, Crazy Beaver Customs. You can see his back. That's Jason.
Jason was in here today.
And we actually sold that bike on consignment for him recently.
Oh, yeah. That was
that's the red
Virginia
bike
or something,
it did.
right?
Yep. That was a cool bike. And the sound off contests, I love them because they involve so much music. And they put on a first class event.
And some of it's music that would really surprise you. It's not all hip hop. I mean, there's some.
Yeah, the tiebreaker songs are my favorite.
With the AC/DC
Oh,
kicking
yeah.
it in there.
Yeah. and a Tennessee whiskey I like to
Yep.
listen to on these two when they play it. But one funny story here is one year they were in the building and it was really hot that year.
Oh yeah.
And and I didn't know what to do. And for any of you guys who know Sam Renfro, Sam Renfro is one of the hardest working staff members we have, bar none. Anybody who works here will tell you that.
He is.
He's our service support guy back there. He sold bikes here for a while. There's another guy that never has a bad day. And, you know, if anybody's feeling kind of stressed out, he's going to pump you up. And we're standing there trying to figure out what we're going to do. And here comes Sam in a forklift with cases of water on the front.
With a pallet
a pallet full of water. Like he was saving the day. Yeah. I mean, it was one of the pallets from the jump. That's exactly right.
Yes.
It was one of the pallets.
Yes.
I just hit the table. I just hit the table.
Knees.
Sorry. So it was one of the jumps, one of the pallets from the jump. And I mean, the people like freaked out because now we had solved our problem of no water there.
It was really awesome. The crowd reaction was they just went nuts.
I think that was the same night that we went really late and someone had called the cops on us because we were after 11 and the police officer showed up and one of them was like, I love these bikes.
Yeah.
This is so cool. I love these bikes. And they basically stood outside of the sound off to make sure that no one else would call the cops so we could finish the event.
Right. As long as nobody was playing the music outside of the building.
Right. We had to keep it inside the building. That's right.
The doors had to be closed. And like they listed all this stuff. They were like, you know, just treat it like it's a club.
Right.
We're like, okay.
We couldn't have amplified music outside, and technically they were amplified. So if we kept the doors closed,
right?
Yeah, we could get away with it.
Yeah.
They were pretty awesome.
We snuck that one.
We did sneak that one. Let's talk about the fire bike and Joey Hensley real quick.
The fire bike is super cool.
So one year for the bike show, it was I think it was Saturday morning. I'm pretty sure it was Saturday morning.
Yeah, because that's the day it opens.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
So I get a phone call, frantic, when I'm getting ready in the hotel room. That's Joey right there.
There's Joey.
And so
that dude is nuts. I love
he's
him.
been supporting us a long time. Shout out to Backyard Baggers for sure. But I get a call in my hotel room, and the fire marshal doesn't want to open the bike show. He had walked in to do the inspection for fuel, which we weren't allowed to have in the vehicles.
Right.
And the very first person he went to, I think it was the Vintage Bike Club or something, Vintage Bike Club of America, or I don't remember who it was, but it wasn't a regular person at our event. And the guy was really rude to the fire marshal. He basically made the fire marshal mad. So the fire marshal says, I'll show you, and starts really checking all the gas tanks. And unfortunately, one of the semi trucks that year didn't get the memo that he had to have a quarter tank of gas in his semi truck. He had full semi truck gas tanks on both sides.
Yeah, that was one of the builders.
No, I think it was it Toyota or was it one of the builders?
I thought it was one of the builders.
It might have been one of the builders, but one of the semi trucks was full.
Right.
So the fire marshal says you can't open and you can't take the truck out. He's basically saying you can't do the show. So I go running out of the Sheridan. I'm running down to the thing because I'm trying to figure out what's going on. We're trying to appease the fire marshal. Nick is trying to come up with a way to pump the diesel fuel out of the cans. You know, so Bruce, who was on our show last week, has one gas can ready to pump out the bikes that have too much fuel because there were a few that had a little extra fuel. Yeah. Nobody had a full tank. And then we needed one pump for diesel fuel because of the truck. So we're trying to orchestrate all this to try to get it open. Meanwhile, the lines are forming out front to come into the expo and the customers because it opened at 10.
Right.
So here comes Joey coming through the bottom gate, and he's like, "What's going on, Mark? There's like people wanting to come in. Why aren't we open?" And I said, "I don't know what to do, man. The fire marshal isn't letting us in because there's gas in some of these trucks." He said, "Fire marshal? Are there firemen with him?" "Yep, there's a couple firemen with him." "Where are they?" He goes over to take them. He brings them over. And that year, the bike he built for the for the expo show, for the bike builder show, was called America. And this is the bike right here. And it was a 911 tribute bike. Jody Goodwill, SRM Paintworks, did the paint on it.
It's a beautiful bike.
Every once in a while, a bike comes out in our industry that makes a huge impact. It's a memorable, it's bad to the bone, it's awesome. This bike won shows for years. And he brought it to the show, and it was sitting up on stage. He takes a fire marshal over there. They take pictures with the bike. Like, it's a fireman tribute bike. How can they be mad? And we open the show.
Yep, you're good to go.
So this bike saved the day.
It did.
And the bike was awesome. The IMBBA judged that show that year, and that bike had very little wrong with it in the judging. And what I love about that thing is he rode that bike everywhere. I saw him ride that bike in Sturgis. I saw him ride it to Ray's funeral.
Yep, I rode behind him in Ray's funeral.
That bike. You could ride that thing anywhere, and it was beautiful.
It was really cool.
And the paintwork on it was just it's just
immaculate.
Crazy. So
immaculate.
That's our fire marshal story in the convention center, where we were just this close to not happening that day.
Yeah.
And
that was when we really learned the lesson and cracked down on things.
Yeah, the next year you couldn't get in with gas.
Yeah, exactly. Batteries disconnected. What is wrong with you? You know better.
That's right. Oh my God, that was horrible. Let's go back to the Bedlam unveil, the Bedlam VIP tent. We had an unveiling there for the Bedlam bike that we built for them.
The Softail.
There it is, right there. It's a Crossbones.
Yep.
It started as a Crossbones. And I'll let you jump in.
Yeah, so Bacon did most of the work on this. It's actually a Crossbones, even though it's not a Springer front end. But there were a lot of little things that we did on this bike. And one of the things that we did was on the inverted forks, there was a brake on one side, while on the other side it was blank. It just had the two holes for the screws. Mark's like, we got to have something to go there. So Jeremy took the Jeremy Hoy.
Mm-hmm.
He took the Graybeard Distillery emblem.
Yep, their logo.
And cut it into a piece of aluminum with carbon fiber in the background and everything like that. And it was just going to be super awesome. Well, we never saw the part until about 30 seconds before they unveiled the bike.
Mm-hmm.
And here comes Bacon rolling up on his electric glide, and Jeremy comes out of the shadows and pulling this part out of the tour pack and runs over there, and he's like, zip, 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 there it is, and we're gonna unveil the Bedlam bike.
So the bike was at the Anchor Bar in downtown Raleigh, where the unveiling was under cover,
bolting on the last part as they're pulling the cover off.
And the unveiling was happening. It was on a schedule.
Oh, yeah.
It was on a published schedule for Bike Fest, so we had to do it that time,
down to the minute.
Yeah, and sure enough, and then I had to ride that thing up Fayetteville Street to where
on the sidewalk,
and the freaking clutch wouldn't work, and that thing just wanted to lunge constantly. And
Mark, what are you doing?
There's people everywhere looking at us, and I'm trying to baby this motorcycle to the point to where we're going to display it for the rest of the weekend,
right?
Without anyone realizing that the doggone thing is staying in gear and lunging.
Yeah, it's like every blip of the throttle was just like rip, rip.
Oh man,
that
Bedlam unveil, that was fun though.
That was
that was a cool event.
It was a total Discovery Channel chopper build off whatever moment.
Yeah.
A TV moment when you come up there and you bolt on that last part with 30 seconds to go. It was something else.
When we had that VIP area, I don't know how much vodka they went through, but they went through a lot of vodka, cases of it. They've been a good partner for us for a long time, and they had a lot of confidence in the bike that we built a second one.
We
built a Triumph Thruxted for them, and those two bikes are floating around in liquor stores and stuff right now, helping them sell vodka. So pretty cool partnership. Those guys are awesome. They've come through for us every time.
And tasty vodka too.
And tasty vodka too. Yes. We don't have any though. So yeah, that was pretty fun. Do we have the picture of the Stay Six bike races? This is one of my favorite stories because it got me in some trouble.
There it is.
So the picture that you see is two little kids. How old do you think they are? 7?
Probably 5, 6, 7 in there. Yeah.
And they're racing these little electric bicycles. I don't know. It was probably 20 feet in the parking lot. And it was like they were kind of heads up, right? It was an event we had last year at Bike Fest. And April was doing all of our marketing and our flyers, and she comes up with this flyer that says "Stay Six Kid Drag Racing," and it really looked cool. Like when you look at the flyer, you're thinking this is going to be amazing. So we do the drag races. It's, I don't know, 3-4 kids. It wasn't very many that did it.
Yeah.
And they just had a great time, and all the adults watched and cheered, and it was really cool for all the people to watch. And I get a phone call after Bike Fest from our insurance company that says, "We're not renewing your policy.
You're in trouble.
We're not renewing your policy because you do child drag racing." I'm like, child drag racing? These are electric bikes. You don't understand. I need to show you the picture. Please look at the picture. No,
It's like 5 miles an hour, dude.
We went on the website. We saw the we saw the flyer, and you are drag racing with children, and that is beyond our limits, and you can't renew the policy. We had to shop a new insurance company because they literally dropped us over it. That was absolutely crazy.
Well, knowing well, you can pedal a bike faster than you can.
That was definitely a moment.
It sure was. The trouble we get into over this.
Remember when we had the Kawasaki sponsorship and we had Jason Britton? Jason
Number
Britton,
one stunner.
He was probably, at least at that time, one of the most famous stunt riders out there, at least media wise. And he was an awesome guy. I mean, he came and did put on some great shows. He was a lot of fun, but he already was on TV and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So he shows up with his own motorhome,
XML or whatever.
He had his own RV, and it was parked on Fayetteville Street. And I get the phone call that someone has driven their trike into Jason Britton's motorhome, and he was not happy.
No. There he is.
Yeah, he was not happy at all because someone had damaged his motorhome, and we ended up having to pay to fix that. That cost a little bit of money, but that was not a phone call that I wanted to have for sure.
Right.
It was crazy. Crazy.
Anytime there's a disaster, look, Hillman.
All right, I gotta take a minute to explain who Mike Hillman even is. Right, Mike was a technician here a number of years ago, and this is probably one of my favorite pictures of him ever, because he loved drag racing, he loved nitro fuel. He loved the smell of it. And if you look closely at this photograph, we were doing a drag bike cranking in this picture downtown. And Mike Hillman is smiling, got his arms crossed, and is loving it. And look at the people around him. Like, they cannot breathe. Their eyes are stinging from the nitro fuel coming out of the tailpipes. And the smell is pretty intense when these bikes fire up. And his face is absolutely amazing because he was in heaven when he would smell that. His wife actually is a neighbor of mine. And I sent her this picture today. And when I sent her this picture, she was like, I knew that picture existed. I've been wanting that picture. I know that he loved that smell.
It's the nitro shot.
Yeah, the nitro shot, right? I mean, we have cranked that bike at the dealership, and people will jump. I remember one of our salesmen, Bill Norwood.
Yes,
he jumped like 10 feet in the air like a cat.
He did. It's like he levitated.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that used to be a rite of passage for somebody that worked here.
It was.
During Bike Fest, you know, they'd always do the bike crankings. He'd be like, "Hey man, go out there and hold that wheelie bar, make sure the bike doesn't move." And then Ray would just
He'd hit the
give it
throttle.
the full throttle,
Oh.
and they just get that whiff and just
The nitro shot.
Pass
That's exactly
out,
what it
yeah.
was. And Mike Hillman loved that. And that picture, I love that picture because everybody, the one guy actually has his face covered with his shirt.
oh yeah, yeah. Mike's just like, yeah, no big deal.
I love this stuff. Yeah, he was an awesome guy. He passed away a couple of years ago, but he was a really good technician.
He was.
And I told his wife Deb, I said, you know, that face, I've seen that face several times from him actually when I was at the dealership coming into the service, when he would, to me, that's the I'm glad it's you and not me face. But in that particular photo, it was I wish I was on that bike.
Oh yeah, totally. He loved racing.
I know this is not a Bike Fest story, but do you remember when we got in trouble because he was doing burnouts at the bike night at Tyler's Tap Room
on his Buell? Yes, he had a black Buell that he made into a drag bike, and he had the I think it was like a 5 or 6 inch slick on it, wheelie bar from Pingle, everything. And he took that bike down there, and it's like like huge cam in it, and just spun it up. And
so Bad Daddy Burgers called the cops on us,
right,
because they had customers sitting out on the patio, and the tire stuff, the tire residue was getting into the customers' food.
Yeah,
which I feel terrible about. But yeah, he had a blast doing that thing.
Oh yeah,
and it was pretty badass.
It was pretty cool. Black Bike Mike.
Man. So let's talk a little bit about the Tattoo Fest. You got a picture of Jimmy in there. Jimmy and Jesse put on the Tattoo Fest for us the last couple of years. And shout out to 401 Tattoo. They've been struggling right now because they can't be open. And it's been a really tough time with them here with the pandemic. But I remember that I was in the convention center one year. And I don't know if there was new management. I don't know. Something changed at the convention center staff. You remember this?
Yes, yes.
And Jimmy's setting up the festival. Him and Jesse got everything going. And he comes over to me and he says, "Mark, we're ready to go, but there's no power." And I know you know something about tattoos, Mark, but we're going to need the guns to operate. So we're going to need some power. So I called up to the convention center and I'm like, okay, something's going on here. The power is not on for the tattoo places. That's extra. It was not on the work order that you needed power for the Tattoo Fest.
Right.
So I took the words right out of Jimmy's mouth and I said, with all due respect, I don't know how much you know about tattoos, but it's a tattoo fest and they need guns to do the tattoos. Did I really have to explain that we needed power? Well, apparently that year we did. And I was pissed. And I had to negotiate with the staff at the convention center to get power to all the booths. And we ended up having to pay for it. And it was a huge disaster because Jimmy hadn't charged the artists. And we ended up just absorbing the cost of it to make it happen. But I remember I was at a very, very high stress level when this happened.
Oh, yeah.
And then they went to set up, and the artist said, "Are there any tablecloths?" And I'm Are we back? Okay, we're back. Okay, so
right.
we I was at this really high stress level, and one of the artists said, "Hey, where's our tablecloths?" And I said, "Tablecloths? They didn't come with the tables," which they did every year before. And I called up to the convention center and I said, "Hey, are there any tablecloths? They're $25 each." Oh man, that was it for me.
Right.
And Jesse basically calmed everybody down because she said, "Forget it. We're going to buy our own tablecloths." But ultimately, we ended up negotiating tablecloths, I think, if I remember right.
Yeah.
So they ended up bringing them
Yeah, I think
down,
we did.
and we ended up getting tablecloths in the convention center. But that was crazy. That was a crazy tattoo fest setup that year.
That was probably a very uneasy conversation on the other end of the phone from you.
Yeah, it was not a lot
from
of fun.
the convention center.
Yeah, Steve remembers that we had no power because it
Yep.
wasn't a contract. I remember how much extra we had to pay. Yes,
Yeah.
it was a lot.
Yeah.
I remember that too. Steve remembers that.
That's why we just went dead. You didn't pay the power.
Yeah, didn't pay the power. No, man, that was another crazy thing. And coincidentally, there's a lot of people that have been working with Bike Fest for a really long time. And since we're on the Tattoo Fest, I want to show you. This is a picture of the tattoo artist that I've been using for a long time. This was about, her name's Samantha, and I'm going to say it was a while ago because she's been supporting us and the event for a long time. Actually, if you came to the Tattoo Fest probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, the logo that symbolized Tattoo Fest before Jimmy took it over, she did that. It was the two skulls in the helmets.
Yeah, that's when
with the
we used to
laser
have it
eyes.
up in the
Yeah.
harbor room.
So she actually did that for us back then. I remember I was getting tattooed one day, and where's the current picture? I was getting tattooed one day, and she said, I was talking about it, a logo, and she said, "Well, I could make it for you." And so she drew it up, and we put it on a banner and all that, and it was pretty cool. Should I confess?
Go ahead.
So Samantha's probably my longest lasting female relationship because she's been tattooing me for years. I've known her longer than I was married. All right, let's move on to the next thing. Shout out to Samantha. All right, so 2014 was our 10-year anniversary for Bike Fest. And that year we wanted to do something special. And that's the year that we decided to do the expo in the convention center.
Yep.
So Chris Weiss came to my office and said, "Hey, Mark, I got this idea. I think we should do this thing in the convention center." And I think he was a little nervous the first time he brought it into my office because he knew it was going to be expensive. And we we're going to have to raise more money to do it. And we had to convince Ray that it was going to be a cool idea.
Right. Because he's going to put his name on it.
He's going to put his name on it. Yep. And so it had to be really good. And he went over everything that he had planned that we were going to put in there, the semi trucks and all that stuff. And I thought it was a cool idea. I didn't know if it was something that we could bite off at that point, but I felt like we had to try because we did need something really special for the 10th year Bike Fest. And right before all that happened, I used to get really frustrated all the time because I would take bikes to the other bike shows and I would never win. And I remember Jody's dad, Dave Perowitz, said one time, "You know how you never lose another bike show?
Have your own.
You have your own bike show." So that's what we did. And we put it in the convention center. And we did a lot of other activations in there that were really cool, but it was a huge undertaking. And we had to sell Ray on it. Of course, you know what Ray said. He loved it because it just grew the event by another venue. And he wanted this Bike Fest to rival a lot of the other rallies out there, even though it was shorter.
Yeah, that was a big step too.
It was a big step.
Really big.
And ultimately it was a lot to take on. And after the first, I think we did the expo for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure we did it for 5 years. And it had a pretty good run. Actually, it was 4 years.
4 years.
We didn't do it last
right.
year.
Yeah.
And it had a pretty good run, but it was a lot of a lot of work, and the convention center bill to go in there was getting higher and higher and higher, and we literally couldn't do it without charging, and we tried to charge one year and it didn't work out. But the bike show was a lot of fun, and it was a really cool thing for the 10th year anniversary. But on that 10th year, we had what we called Cookie Gate.
Yes.
And Cookie Gate is one of my favorite Bike Fest stories,
It is,
personally.
It's got to be one of the funniest.
So I hope Scott's watching. Scott Meisner was our PR guy at the time.
Yep.
He has a public relations company. And Chris and Scott devised an awesome plan to send cookies that Chris's daughter baked. That Chris's daughter baked because she was working in a bakery at the time. And these cookies just had an X on them. Now, the X for us meant 10.
10 years.
But the cookies only had the X. And they were big and they were delicious. And Scott gets together with the city, and he spends some time. He spends some time talking with the City of Raleigh Public Information Officer. At the time, I don't remember who it was. Doesn't matter. But the City of Raleigh Public Information Officer and Scott gets okayed by them to use the City of Raleigh letterhead and to send a note with these cookies that basically says, we have a huge announcement to make. And it was to roll out the expo.
Right. But there was nothing else on there.
There was nothing else on there.
Yeah.
It was the cookies with an X. It was the Raleigh letterhead. And the we have a giant announcement to make was meant to be from us. But I could see how it looked like maybe on Raleigh letterhead, it might have come from Raleigh.
Right.
Which we didn't think that.
A little misconstrued,
right? So we sent it to all the radio stations, right? And I remember distinctly G105 getting these cookies and talking about how good they are and basically trying to figure out, what does the X mean? Is it Kobe Bryant's new shoe? Like, all these crazy stories came up of what this X means, but none of it was Bike Fest.
Right. 10 years.
So ultimately, I get a phone call from an attorney in Raleigh who says, you're not allowed to use Raleigh letterhead like that. What you did is no different than buying a Crown Victoria and painting it black and white and putting blue lights on it and saying you're a police officer. And I thought, oh, God, we're dead. I had to write a letter of apology to the mayor. I had to send an email to the mayor. Scott had to meet with the city. Like, we basically had to completely tuck our tail between our legs and basically take the heat for this on what we thought was a really, really cool idea. And they thought it was kind of a crazy publicity stunt. And we dubbed it Cookie Gate.
Cookie Gate.
Because it really... it involved cookies.
Yeah.
Oh,
with
my
X's
God.
on them.
With
With
X's
no
on 'em.
explanation.
That was one of those things that customers never knew happened or never knew that it experienced. There's actually Ray Price and Nancy McFarland on the bike. I remember that picture actually brings back a cool memory because we had a Bike Fest press conference one year. And you remember this? The bike where Ray took off with the mayor?
Yeah, that was in the rain.
Yeah, it
That
did
was
start.
the rainy one.
Yeah. So it was the press conference before the rainy Bike Fest. That's right.
Yeah.
And
It was a Thursday.
and we're doing the press conference, and Mayor McFarland comes over and says, "You need to take me for a ride." And Ray goes, "Okay, let's go right now." And she says, "Okay." And he looks at me and goes, and she gets on the back of his trike. I have to lead. I have a ton of work to do, by the way. I do not want to be out gallivanting around town because I got stuff to do for Bike Fest. And he goes like that. And we take off Jordan Lake, Holly Springs. Like, I get back to 64.
It wasn't just a simple jog.
It wasn't a simple jog. No. And Ray's got Mayor McFarland out in the woods on a bike, and I'm thinking this cannot be okay. I'm waiting for police cars to show up, the helicopter I don't know what
There's
to
been
expect.
an abduction.
Like, I don't understand. There she is, watching the drag bike crank up, not covering her eyes or face.
Right.
She was a huge supporter for Bike Fest and for our shop for a long time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And Marianne Baldwin's the mayor now. Her predecessor, also a huge friend of ours and supporter. They both did a really great job for Raleigh for a long time. So I get back to Highway 64, and it's left to go to the dealership. I have my signal on. I want to go left. We get to the light, and he goes, and we have to go right to go back over Jordan. I mean, we were gone forever. And I remember when we got back downtown to City Hall, and Mayor McFarland got off that bike. Like, it was cool.
She loved it.
It was really cool because
really did.
I just thought it was amazing that she jumped on Ray's trike and we took off. And that picture reminded me of that story because I was scared out of my mind. What is something? I mean,
Right.
It's the mayor of Raleigh. I was already thinking, like, what's going to be in the paper?
Right. The owner of the shop abducts mayor.
Oh my God, that was crazy.
That was a good one.
So we've had some people get married at Bike Fest.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And the Bike Fest venue has what? Wait,
Whoa.
whoa! Who is that guy?
Wait a minute.
Wait, is that a what the hell moment, or is that a regular
No,
picture? at our
that's
presentation?
actually a wedding party story right there. So I think it was 2012. My band at the time, Blown to Wadnam, got to play downtown, and we were all jamming and everything. And right before we went on, we found out that the fire dancers that were coming on after us had canceled.
The fire dancers.
So we had to come up with like a whole hour of material that we hadn't been practicing. So basically, we got a 2-hour set, and we got to close the show. So we're right about halfway through our set, and we're playing, and we're right in front of what is that? The Marriott, right there in front of the plaza.
Yep.
This bus pulls up and empties out. Now, anybody that's a musician will tell you, anytime you're playing, there's always going to be one heckler in the audience. It's like, free bird, free bird. And we had
You're not
that.
supposed to do that?
No.
Okay.
It's frowned upon. So one of these guys on this bus that with this wedding party was the heckler. And he's like, free bird, free bird. And I was kind of playing with it, and I was almost ignoring the guy, but like I went up to the mic. I was like, did you say free beer? Free beer? Okay. Now, a sidebar to that story, there was a beer vendor right off stage.
Right.
And part of the legal way that they distribute these beers is they open them and then hand them to you.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, somebody in a bridesmaid dress, after I said free beer about 3 times, hands me a tall boy of PBR unopened from this lady's stand. So she gave me a stolen beer on stage because the heckler said free bird and I replied free beer. And it was also a huge audience that we had too. So it was really cool. We maybe had 50 people there, and then this bus empties, and boom, we got 125. We're like, we're rock stars.
That's pretty awesome.
So,
we've done a couple of weddings at Bike Fest.
Oh yeah.
And this picture is my favorite. And
Dan.
These are actually our friends. This is Dan. And
I hope Dan's watching.
Yeah.
And Dara.
Dan and Dara got married at Bike Fest one year, and the reason why I love this picture is because of his shirt.
Oh yeah, totally.
That's a tuxedo T-shirt.
Yeah.
Which is totally his style.
Oh yeah. You know?
And Dan's probably one of the most talented fabricators I've ever met, and he's done a lot of metal work for some of our custom bikes over the years, and they're just amazing people, and they've been super supportive of us as well.
Totally. Yeah.
And when they called and said, "Hey, we want to get married at Bike Fest," I mean, it was pretty awesome.
I was like,
it was pretty awesome, and they had a great time. We had an awesome party for them at the Sheridan afterwards.
And then they came down the next year for their anniversary.
Yeah, they did. They're good friends of ours, even though they live in Virginia. They live far away. But they've been.
I'm not even going to try to pronounce the town, but it starts with a P.
Yeah, we've mailed stuff back and forth to it. You know,
it's got like some X's and U's and
parts
shit
and
in
stuff. Yeah, it's kind of funny. But Dan came down a couple times with bike builds, and it was kind of an honor when he wanted to get married here, and it was pretty fun. I thought that was really really cool.
Oh yeah.
So what are you looking forward to for this year's Bike Fest?
So first of all, hoping it happens.
Well, so yes,
because the not self-proclaimed king of Bike Fest, somebody else dubbed me that title. If there's no Bike Fest, what the hell am I going to do? But we got to have a Bike Fest. And then, you know, I really, I think it would be really awesome if we got the bike show back, or we did like we talked about and had the kind of riding around bike show, you know?
Yeah. You know, Ricky Will, who helps us with the sound off, has had a couple of good ideas to incorporate some of that into the sound off contest. And I think he's onto something there, because it's combining the bike show and the bike sound stuff into the same venue. And I think we might be able to, it'd be kind of cool if we could pull that off. So we've had some dialogue about it, but we need to probably firm that up. And obviously with COVID and everything, we got to hope that we can do it, first of all. I'm kind of bummed, you know, we didn't get to our Wall of Death stories.
Hey, TJ.
We didn't get to our Wall of Death stories. And the Wall of Death last year was awesome.
It was pretty good. Yeah.
Do you have the picture of Rhett?
There's Rhett.
Rhett Rotten.
There he is.
I love this guy. I love Rhett. And everywhere, Rhett Rotten has a great show. And he's a great showman. And he makes me feel like I'm part of the show every time I see him, whether it's Sturgis, whether it's Daytona, whether it's here. Like, I feel like I'm part of what he's doing. That picture, leave that picture up a minute.
Yeah, that's the rollers.
He's on rollers in front of the Wall of Death in our gravel parking lot. And one of the coolest things that I own is that banner right behind him. He gave that to me after that bike show, and it's hanging in my bedroom. That banner that was on that Wall of Death is hanging in my bedroom.
So what's that, 3/4 of a wall?
It's giant. It's giant. And I was honored when he presented me, because he hand painted that on actual canvas himself.
Oh, that's cool.
And he hand paints them for each of the events that he goes to do. But they usually stay on the wall. And for some reason, he felt compelled to present me with that. And it was really, really cool. But Rhett put on a really good show. And one of the craziest stories that I have about the Wall of Death stuff is when he sets the Wall of Death up out there, it's with levels. Like, it has to be perfect. Like, it's an art to set these things up.
Depends on gravity, physics.
And it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work. And when Red came, I read the contract. So I had manpower available to help set it up. Thank you to the Hog members who went over there and killed themselves.
Charlie, Steve.
Oh, my gosh. Yep. I mean, we couldn't have done it without them. And we're going to talk about the Hog members in a minute that helped make this event happen year after year, because I didn't start with them, but because I wanted to end with them. But that's a great shot of Rhett there with our Geico sponsorship in the background. That's a cool photo right there. That's a cool perspective, I think.
Oh, yeah.
But I walked over there. So let me back up. Rhett is setting this wall up, and he's telling me all the excitement about what happens when you set up the Wall of Death and how hard it is. And I get a phone call, or no, Chris got a phone call that the Wall of Death is on the other guy's property.
Yep.
Because we had set it up too far back. And what Rhett was trying to do was he was trying to make parking. So he tried to push the wall back to have more parking and more places for people, not thinking, because it was just all the gravel lot, but there was a property line through there.
And so here come the insurance issues again.
There's a wall of it's called the Wall of Death.
Yeah.
Right?
Who's going to insure that?
And so we have to call the property owner. We have to get an insurance policy. We have to make sure insurance policy covers him in case something happens in this Wall of Death. And it's called the Wall of Death. So that was an interesting afternoon, and Chris Weiss worked very diligently to help us have all the coverages we need to actually have the wall of death.
Good job, Chris.
Because the wall of death last year almost didn't happen because of that. And that was pretty insane.
It was.
And I didn't know how I was going to go over and tell Rhett after all that work that because of where it was sitting, we couldn't do it. And it would have taken a whole day to move it.
Oh, yeah.
Because by the time we realized what was going on,
just move it 2 feet this way, guys.
You can't just slide it over.
No.
You know, it's just impossible. So that was my wall of death story. That was kind of crazy. And that was our second time we had it.
Right.
Because the first time we had it in the convention center.
Right. And that was the first time they had ever set up indoors.
Yeah. And it posed some problems, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So,
we couldn't put the top on. I mean, there were all kinds of stuff.
And it was on concrete.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were worried it was going to move.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't on like a parking lot concrete.
No. This is super slick.
This is super slick.
Like finished.
Yep. That's not the first time we had concrete problems, though. Because remember when we had the good idea that Ryan Lanier should stunt sometimes outside and sometimes inside. Sounds fine to me. I mean, what could possibly happen, right?
No, that didn't work.
Well, remember what he had to do? He put Coca-Cola down. He put Coke syrup down and stunted inside. Again, another time when I was like, hey, Ryan, I need you to stunt inside. And he says, you know, the concrete's slippery. I'm like, oh, crap. But you're on the schedule. It's already published. All right, Mark, I'll take care of it. You got any syrup?
Yeah,
and we had syrup for the soda machine. So he would take the syrup over there, put it on the concrete, and he would stunt ride in the convention center on the concrete.
Yeah, I mean, as much planning goes into it, we can't hit every little detail like that sometimes, you know, and it's thoughts like that on the fly that keep it going.
Well, a lot of the people we've mentioned tonight have helped us tremendously.
Oh,
I mean, there's examples where Jody, Dave, Ankin, Toy Maker, Rhett, Ryan, and Ryan's been helping me for years. Cole, I mean, all these guys would come up with ways to overcome some of this stuff that sometimes we just didn't think about because the venue changed or the rules changed or whatever. And we ended up having a really, really good event every year. So
John's first time hanging out Tobacco Road.
Oh, at the Wall of Death. Yeah. And that's pretty cool. So I appreciate all that from all those people because they've been partners with us for a long time. And, you know, we've worked really hard to put on a good product for our customers. And I know it's changed a lot over the years. And, you know, the industry's changed a little bit. So insurance rates would have been easier if you would have just called.
Oh, Vance, man. The womb of
life.
That's how we'll list it from in the future.
Right. We need to ask Red if he can do that for us.
Oh, yeah.
For our event, the Wall of Death becomes the womb of life. Thank you, Dave. Oh, what? This is a what the hell moment. What were we thinking this year? This had to be like 2000. Well, this was Expo.
Well, that's Misfits.
Yeah,
so maybe what, 15?
Let's see. That was Ride Wheels sponsoring it. That must have been 15. What were we thinking? We had a wrestling match.
America.
In the
Look at that guy.
Center. Look at what is
awesome.
that? Oh my gosh.
I wasn't in any of those planning meetings.
Whose idea was the wrestling ring? I think that was Chris White.
What is that?
What is that? Who? I don't even remember this, but I saw it in the pictures today, and I thought to myself,
it's like team yoga.
What on earth is going on here? That is definitely downtown Raleigh. That's City Plaza. That's Geico in the background. What were we trying to do? What is this?
There's more.
What year was this?
Oh, wait.
Were we trying to have like MMA fighting or something?
Oh, yeah. There's There we go.
I don't.
No regrets.
That's exactly what I thought when I saw the picture. I was like, no regrets. Oh my gosh. He had
Kids in the Bubbles.
Where did this come from? Whose idea would this have been?
It sounds like a movie to me.
I mean, so this must have been in downtown Raleigh in one of the intersections. And it is basically giant balls in water, and kids were running around and then bumping into each other.
Those are kids protected from COVID-19.
What were we thinking?
We were thinking ahead.
Oh boy. Julie Moody. Yes. So if you're just listening, the picture is of Julie Moody, the world's strongest woman. I don't remember what her title was.
Right.
But she would hold 4 bikes with straps, and the bikes would do burnouts pulling away from her, and she would hold them in.
Mm-hmm.
So it was actually pretty impressive to watch. But I will tell you, one of my lasting memories from Bike Fest is when I walked into the conference room one day when she was preparing to do this, and she was eating a bowl of raw eggs.
Wow.
I guess
Rocky Balboa.
I guess for the protein, I don't know, but I walked out and I was like,
A side note, the bike on the right there, that's Bruce's Springer.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, she did this in 13 and 14. I looked it up when I found that picture. She did it 2 years. She held bikes back. I think she broke a world record at one point. And the next year she was here practicing, and something went wrong, and I think she like slipped and she broke her nose on the asphalt out there. It was scary, and I don't know whatever happened to Julie Moody after that, because she never came back.
April says 2016.
2016. So she never came back to do anything. Freedom Biker Church sponsored the wrestling. That makes it even better. That makes it even better.
Dusty Roads, baby.
Oh man, I think there was some famous
pounds of twisted steel and sex appeal.
There was some famous people at in the wrestling deal. I don't remember who they were, but there were some famous ones.
Team Yoga.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know what we were thinking with that yoga stuff. I don't even know what that was. Better than hot dog.
Oh, come on. That was not Bike Fest.
No. Oh, man.
I'm going to steal one of Mark's phrases real quick. You know, he asked, what's going on here? What's going on there? You know, there's one of his phrases, there's a lot of gears in this machine.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes some stuff gets overlooked, maybe.
Yeah.
And we have wrestling, MMA.
Oh man,
Team Yoga.
What is going on here?
Wow.
I don't remember this.
Clearly a wig.
I do not remember this. That was also Freedom Biker Church.
Yeah. That's I really don't know what to say about that.
Oh man. You know, it's amazing because we've had a lot of fun with this over the years. Geico brought the yoga girls. Oh, they were from Geico.
So,
okay.
That makes more sense.
Makes sense. Thank you for the input there, April. You know, we've done a lot. I was going through all the pictures the last couple of days and today especially, and man, we've done some cool stuff with Bike Fest over the years.
Oh, totally.
And, you know, today we tried to talk about some of the things that were bloopers and that went wrong and some of the stuff that got solved kind of in a crisis mode. But I saw a lot of really fun stuff that was going really good, too, when I was going through the photos.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And
brought back a lot of memories when I was going through mine today.
Now, when I saw this one, I thought, what in the hell is this? I do not. This was an early Bike Fest picture. Maybe some of the Hog members that are on can tell me what was going on here.
Right.
I can't decide if that's an actual helicopter or if it's a statue of some sort.
Landing, taking off.
But the photo to me is epic.
It is.
And there must have been a ride or something that went to that because that wasn't at the dealership. I'm going to be transparent.
Did you say transparent?
Oh, what about the trapeze artist?
Oh.
You know what? That is actually a really good thing.
Yeah.
We were going to
talk about it. Yeah.
Because we used to have Circus Una here every year, and
Yep.
people loved it. And she was set up on the street downtown. And that was a giant setup. It took a lot of space. And it took concrete blocks to keep the posts up. And it was a high wire act. I don't think I have a picture of it, but it was a high wire act that would flip the bike around and everything. And, and people really liked it.
And then somebody had the idea, let's move it inside.
And now who would have to come up with something like that? I mean, I thought that it would be an awesome thing.
Make the expo bigger.
That's exactly right. And so Una shows up, and I said, hey, you're going inside. And we got all the city brought in the concrete blocks and everything. So we could do it and all. And she said, the roof isn't very high, though. Like, I'm going to have to ride the bike into the rafters.
Right.
And that's exactly what they did.
Right. Like, there's supports and all kinds of stuff up there.
It was crazy. They set the line up at an angle. And so they started down, and they literally went uphill, spinning around and stuff, went into the rafters, rolled backwards, rode back up. They pulled it off.
It was neat.
Again, it was another one of those things where, we thought it was a great idea. We didn't know what we didn't know or didn't check. And the person helping us do the event put on a spectacular show. And it was actually really cool inside the convention center because nobody expected it. And when you walked into that big convention center venue, you had that high wire going.
Right.
That was pretty badass.
Yeah, you can see that from anywhere in the convention center.
Yeah. I'm glad we pulled that off. But Circus Una was cool, and we tried to switch up the things every couple of years to bring in different acts, and we didn't have her back for a number of years. But put that picture up of Jean.
Yeah.
I found this picture. We're going to call that the look.
Yep.
That's the look when we had to figure out if something was wrong, something was going bad, or she was just pondering what she was looking at. And we didn't like it when we got that look.
Yeah, it's distressing.
Yeah.
Let's use that word.
So she had to have guards at Bike Fest. Remember, she would ride around the golf cart?
Oh, yeah.
And everybody wanted to talk to her.
Most influential woman in motorsports, 2016.
She literally won that year, didn't she?
Yeah.
It was pretty cool when she would go around downtown and at the dealership and stuff because everybody wanted to talk to her, and she tried to make time to speak to everybody that wanted to, but it was a little overwhelming sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I found that in one of the slide storages for the pictures, and that was probably 2013 or so. It was a number of years ago. Well, we've been going an hour and a half.
Whoa.
What happened
to
here?
Steve?
Is that Steve Metz? That is Steve. What could possibly have happened at Bike Fest that he has a black eye and he's bleeding from it?
Was he in the Freedom Biker Church Wrestling?
Yoga.
He's on Team Yoga.
Look at it. Like he's pointing. When I found this picture in the 2006 folder.
That's
so
early.
That's early. Yeah. That was the first time he was our hog director, I think. He says director on the vest, and he's been supporting us. Him and his wife Jen have been supporting us for a lot of years, and they had a huge hand in Bike Fest for many years. And this picture, I just wish I knew what happened because it looks kind of badass.
I want to hear the story. That was just before my time. So
that was an older one.
That'd be an interesting one to hear.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't mention all the hog members and the volunteers over the 15 years that have helped us put this event on. And, we had upwards of 100 volunteers sometimes for Bike Fest over the years. And we couldn't have done it without all those people. And it was long days. Very. I mean, we'd start on Friday. Well, we'd start really on Wednesday setting up. Even earlier. Yeah. But Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday were like all dayers. And I mean, we'd go to bed at 2. I remember one year at Bike Fest, I was ready to go to bed at the Sheridan. It was probably, I don't know, midnight. the elevator doors open, and it was Ray. And he said, and I spent the next 2 hours at the Sheridan bar with Ray. Had to get back up at 6 or 5 or whatever
Right,
time it was
right.
and do it all again. And man, those were tiring weekends. Those
Yeah,
were
I mean,
brutal weekends.
The VIB one that we had, we were out there till almost 3:00. I got locked out of the convention center.
That's right.
Trying to move that.
That's right.
So, it took extra time. So I was at work and, I got home about 3:00 and then I was back here at 6, getting everything rolling, waking up the Fat Boys barbecue guy again.
That's right. I wouldn't trade it for the world, though. I mean, we put
it's
on
my favorite. I love it.
We worked
Fest.
hard to do it, and we put on a good show. And it has changed over the last couple of years to what I think is a little more user friendly event for us, because it got really big and got really hard to activate.
Did. Like there were literally blood went into that. Like I had a puddle of blood in one of my shoes one year at the end of Bike Fest from all the walking, and
it was pretty.
It's
pretty
a lot
wild.
of work, dude. It really is. People have no idea how much goes into that event.
Yeah, they come, they enjoy it, and we want them to enjoy it. And there's just a lot of craziness that happens behind the scenes.
Yeah. The cool part is they don't know what goes into the event.
Well, we've been rolling an hour and a half, so I think we've told some good stories.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate you being on today. I know you've been working all day, so to stay and do the podcast is also a commitment. And I appreciate you for that.
My pleasure.
And hopefully we gave you all some good stories, a little entertainment. And we'll be back next week. I'm going to have a surprise guest next week, and I will release that sometime during the week. So that's it for us. We're signing off.
Love you so much, Ray. So
thank you. Oh, we got a question?
Vance. We got any questions? Do we? Anyway. All right. We'll see y'all later. Thanks for watching.